Hello and welcome to season 2 of Super Pros Bros. I'm Player 1 Ike, and with me, as always, is
Player 2, Eli, and Bros of Parks. This podcast is available on YouTube, SoundCloud, and Spotify.
I did not Brinocchio. Are those the same places they could
Like,
comment
share,
and subscribe?
it sure is.
That's freaking crazy, man. Speaking of crazy, what's been going on in your side of the world? As we've divided the world into two pieces.
We live like a state away. Like, we're not even in different time zones.
For the illusion of story, cut that. Just kidding, don't. What's going up in your sector of the land?
Somebody sent help.
Too late.
Not missing out a ton of novelty. But mostly been trying out a couple new games with friends. Having withdrawals since like competitive League of Legends is done for the year. And that ate too much of my waking hours following along with Worlds. So now I'm like,
Yeah, like you were a viewer, not a participant, right?
yes,
Okay.
I do not have the hands.
Well, I wasn't
to
sure
do
if
that
you
shit.
were like trying to go deep in ranked or anything like that.
No,
is
no,
more
no.
what
I
I'm
mean, I've
gonna
been
say.
playing a bit of League, with friends, a little bit inspired, and then slap down when I'm reminded what a nasty hellscape that is. Solo queue is a travesty.
Yeah, it seems like friends only.
Yeah,
kind of
if I'm not playing with at
occupation.
least one source of additional sanity and misery loves company, like no.
Yeah.
Um, Otherwise, been making myself read more, which has been good because
Good on you.
Brandon Sanderson's a really good author, so it's pretty easy to read what he writes. And yeah, that's otherwise work is work, and I'm making myself edit when I'm not being a bit of a whiny bitch. And here we are. What about you? What's going on down
All
in the
right.
south?
Well, I can't crack my knuckles right now, but I really want to because I have a doozy. So last we recorded, it was like probably the 30th of October.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, just given when we put it out, it's probably around then. So since then, I have had a birthday on the 4th. I am
Mazel
now
tov.
35 years old. I think I got that right. The big 3-5. That same evening, I quit my job. Granted, I put it in like a week in advance, but yeah, quit working at a casino. Hopefully, will be the last time I professionally pitch cards. Since then, started my new job being a substitute teacher at a inner city charter school for middle schoolers, and I am shitting my pants even thinking about that because I am woefully unqualified and terrified. But new adventures gotta muscle up the gumption. I let's see. So that happened the 4th, the 5th. Then this yesterday, I went to a Magic tournament in San Diego. That was a qualifier for a tournament that's going to actually be in San Diego, which seemed apt as I won it. What'd it do?
Oh damn.
Oh damn! Had a very was going to the event with a friend. Randomly just grabbed a bunch of extra cards that I did not need, that I was not anticipating needing. I had the deck that I was going to play.
Oh.
At breakfast, I made some note of like trepidation of like playing the deck that I was going to play, and one of my friends asked if I had any other cards with me. I was like, yeah, I've got this and that, and he's like, dude, you should play this, like Vibes. And he'd been saying Vibes like the whole entire trip, so I was like, fuck it, Vibes, and just like change deck like literal last minute. Wrote down the deck sheet. Never really played. I think I played like 3 games with it one time, and then proceeded to lose 2 games the whole entire weekend, or the whole entire Saturday,
How many games
and
total did
win
you
the
play?
whole. So it was 6 rounds, cut to top 8. I went undefeated, and then double drew into the top 8. So I played, I ended up playing 9 matches, or 9 games in the Switch, 4 matches. One match went to game 3. The rest of them I just bodied and sent packing as a do. And then the top 8, I lost 1 game in the quarterfinals, and then 2-0'd both my semifinal and finals opponent.
So 4-1, 3. So it's 8 rounds. It's 16
I mean,
wins, 2 losses.
Two of them are like, I think 2 of them you don't count. So
Okay,
I
so
effectively
12 wins,
actually
2 losses.
played. Yes, I went 12-2 on the day.
That seems pretty good.
Pretty good, especially considering I just picked.
Just fucking
like,
winging it.
Let's go. Yeah, very
Whipping-
much the wing it
Whipping your
strat.
dick out.
Yeah, it was very satisfying. So got some much appreciated cash, as I am a broke son of a bitch. And yeah, got invitation to the next big thing. I'm going to, actually, speaking of big things, after this recording has already come out, I will be in Atlanta and very much competing in a tournament with a first place prize of $30,000, and hoping to take that home with me on the 20th. But as this comes out the 19th, hopefully I'm doing well. We'll see. But so playing in, I won a qualification to that event that's in Atlanta, and I just won a qualification to the same type of event that's going to be in San Diego. I think it's going to be early next year, like February-ish, I think, something like that. But yeah, it's very
Banging.
satisfying. Trying to think. Went out, saw some movies. Haven't really done. Bought a bunch of polo shirts by choice. That's new and different.
Get some help. You're turning into a dad.
I had to get him to be for like teaching. It was like that or like
Yeah,
button ups, and I'm like, I don't.
I feel you.
Yeah, I wasn't excited about. I was excited about it, but I wasn't excited about it.
Last night I attended a party that was supposed to be like a murder mystery thing. There's supposed to be like a company kind of catering it, and then the people who were doing it got like sick. They had COVID, so it's like shit. So it just ended up being kind of an 80s costume themed hangout night. And so I was like, how do I dress like I'm from the 80s? And Artemis just hits me with the, just dress like your dad does on a Saturday.
Oh gosh. Oh my gosh, that's so great.
I wore a turtleneck and slacks, and fucking Murphy sees me and he's like, you look like fucking Steve Jobs. Are you here to sell me Apple
Nailed
stock?
Nailed it. That's so great. You just reminded me of it. Have you, there's this really silly song by Bo Burnham. I think it's like, hold on, I need to look it up. Has to be one of his new ones. I think
It's one of the new ones I
called
haven't seen. I haven't watched his new
1985.
special.
Huh?
I haven't seen his new special.
No. I don't know that it's from his special.
Ah.
It's a song. It's called. I think it's called 1985. Let me take a listen real quick. Yeah. Look. If you guys want to feel what I'm feeling right now, listen to the song 1985 by Bo Burnham. It'll add some much appreciated je ne sais quoi to the to that statement of dressing like her dad, because he looks like he's from the 80s. That's so great. It's not wrong. She's nailed it, but it's never thought of it like that. It's fucking funny.
Though fucking I feel very outdone because Murphy, God bless him, came dressed in who was the guy, like Ricky Simmons? Was that like the
I don't think that's who you're thinking of. You're talking about the workout guy?
Yes.
I think it's Richard Simmons.
Richard Simmons?
Yeah, Richard Simmons. He's
Okay.
the like sounds gay but was surprisingly straight, I believe.
Yes. But like he came with something that man would wear. It was
like a leotard kind of dealie.
Yes, like
Yeah,
fucking
yeah.
bright teal and pink leotard onesie with fucking this what looked like a black mop just like put on his head with a like headband holding it in place, and these redonkulous fucking snowboarder shades with lightning bolts as the frames. Out fucking standing. And he wore it
Again,
all goddamn night too. So I'm like, that has to
if
be
you
so
want, if
hot.
you want a great representation of Richard Simmons and all his greatness, just YouTube Richard Simmons. Whose line is it anyway? It is a thing of beauty.
Anyway,
Anyway, enough with the not rec recs. What's our before we get too carried away down just random tidbit alley? What's our topic of the day, Broskinkowski?
we are talking about tropes. Those things that people love to dunk on, but really we use way more than we think.
Yeah, I love going out for a good trope. Getting a salad, taking a walk with the lady.
You can't see it, but I'm just kind of slow blinking at my computer screen.
I'm just feeling my oats this morning, man.
To be fair, there are some tropes that we love, and there are tropes that we fucking hate. We're gonna start bad this time.
Yeah. Start with the bad. We're gonna get the poison out and get
We're
the medicine in.
vomit the bad, eat the good. All right, Isaac, start us off. What's terrible? What do we hate?
I hate surrogate representation. This is the way of me epitomizing it is when they feel the need to throw in a character affectation as if that is a way of showing representation. So they'll have a female character who is otherwise there has been no signs of physical empowerment or badassery. They've been kind of meek, and then out of nowhere,
They're just swinging for the
badass.
fences.
Yeah, and not in like a comedic way. There's ways to do it in a comedic way that's kind of funny. Mitchell's versus the Machine. At one point, the mom, who's this Susie Homemaker type, just flips out and goes batshit, and it's awesome because it's out of nowhere and it's absurd.
Sure.
But when they try to do it with any amount of sincerity or realism, it's accidental comedy, but it's not meant that way, and you're kind of hurting a maligned group. You'll see this a lot with homosexuals in film and TV, where to throw it in a character who has been straight, there's been no signs of anything other than that, will just be gay because they needed a gay character, and this is their way of being, an ally when it isn't.
We're woke.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're exactly. They're filling out the bingo card to get more money from the whoever's.
The Emmy bingo card.
Like one of my favorite versions of this, and if you see it differently, feel free to email us at superprobros@gmail.com. Hit me up on Twitter at Like Ike Productions. But in the show Sex Education, there's this character, a bit of a bully, strong guy, dumbass, super sex stud, that for 9 out of 10 episodes, I think, of the first season or something along those lines, he is straight. There's no signs, there's no anything to make you think otherwise. And then the last episode, he gets really physical, like in a fighting confrontation with this outly gay character, and then they just end up fucking. Because it's such a nothing. It makes no sense, and it's there because. And not to say that there isn't randomness in the world and that you can't be that way, but it's so constant and so much, and it's so flagrant and just out of nowhere and just has no rhyme, no reason.
It's like you can have closeted people come out, and you can have them not know they're closeted, and like that could be an interesting kind of measure of self-discovery, and like, but why do I feel like this? Why am I this giant asshole? That is something that can be done, but just doing it because and not giving an actual human level of emotion and depth to it is insulting.
Like, they've done a better job at making this a little less like out of nowhere, but it still is kind of bad. Like, it's not bad, but it could be better, I guess, is the way that it's progressing. If you look at the movie Onward, they have a character mention that they have a female partner when they themselves are female, and that's their way of doing slow inclusion. to be fair, this is a big demographic kids movie, so I get why they're being kind of coy and subtle with it, but this has been going on a little bit too long at this point that I think it's better.
I will kind of play devil's advocate of that one, actually. I don't think you need to be loud with it.
I don't think you need to be loud with it, but I think that by and large, there's too many places that play it soft and light when it's like this is a large percentage of society. Like it's like tens of percents of society. So to constantly be like making them feel like a footnote as opposed to like a real section is kind of it isn't mean, but it's a little bit maligning.
We're getting to that point where we're starting to talk for people that we don't have the perspective of.
That is also fair. That being said, that is I think that is something that I think the best way, like so much of good media or like heartfelt media has to do with being organic, and I think the essence of this is when it's unorganic.
When it is shoehorned in for seemingly no purpose.
Yeah,
Absolutely
to be fair, the onward thing is very much, I think it's a step in the right direction. I think it just needs to not end there. That was my only point towards it. I have nothing against Onward. I think it's a fine movie. Also kids movie, so there's that whole entire dichotomy problem, but whatever.
Sure.
Anyway, before I start
we go too hard on this.
Yeah, before I start becoming an Ouroboros eating myself, what is the
take that microphone from you, because I hate the sudden appearance of morality. And
how dare they have a heart?
Well, there's sometimes, and there's certain people, like when you have scruples about you and you've got your principles, fine. If you're consistent in them, fine. But there's too many times where someone will just absolutely destroy things. And they will kill God knows how many henchmen and then stop and take the captain hostage. Because he needs to go to prison. It's like, what? You just killed 30 dudes. Like, what is happening here? Why?
Yeah, but they didn't have the honorable title of officer, so they're not really people.
Yeah, like it makes some sense when it's like people are unarmed or something, like when the dude is unarmed or whatever. But there's a lot of instances where it's not. And I'm like, and we're just suddenly chill, like we're cool pumping the brakes all of a sudden. Like it's this weird level of inconsistency, and I hate it because oftentimes it goes against like emotional input. Like you were not connected in any way, shape, or form to the guys in the hallway you just brutalized.
Yeah.
But this guy you have legitimate reason to despise and loathe, and that the world would probably be better off without. We're gonna fucking pump the brakes? Like, what? That doesn't make sense. Like, that's not how humans generally operate. Like,
if you were just slapping the people in the hallway, knocking them out, or putting them in handcuffs, tying them against the wall, Spider-Man style.
Yeah.
Like that's one of the things that makes sense when Spider-Man does this, right? Like, he's like zipping people to the wall, and then he takes the bad guy in. It's like, yeah, of course he does. He didn't kill anybody. But when you go like full metal, and you butcher,
like if you're going for your best Punisher fucking cosplay, and you're just riddling a building with holes, but then you like pump the brakes for one guy, it's like, no.
It's the American Pokemon theme song. Gotta kill 'em all, Punisher.
That worked way better than I was expecting. So it's actually why, as much as I hated, and I'm gonna dunk on this in a minute. As much as I didn't like Pierce Brosnan as 007, he's like one of the more iconic 007 people.
Mm-hmm.
I did appreciate shit. Which one is it? Where Sean Bean is the villain?
That's GoldenEye.
Is it Golden? Okay. Where he just kills him at the end. He's like, nah, I'm just letting you
also,
die.
Banger of a line, too. For England, James?
Nah.
For me.
Me. Like, boop. Yeah, like, I appreciate that one is consistent. It's just like, he kills everybody. Oh, yeah, you die too. Like, no problem. No question.
To be fair, I think James Bond does kill most of his villains, too.
He does. He does.
He is a man of principle. Look, if I'm going to kill your henchman, I'm going to kill you, too.
Yeah. And I appreciate that.
The misogyny, not so much.
But like, as much as the kind of quote unquote Batman doesn't kill people, I'm like, debatable.
Yeah,
Um,
it's like, are henchmen not people now? Because
it's like
some of those
I was like,
motherfuckers
you just
gotta be
throw some of
dead.
them off buildings,
Yeah.
they're dead. Like, also, you
Hits them with a
just
metal batarang that he is hurling
yeah, also
at
just
God knows
like
how fast.
take people, smash their head against a wall. Like that
And
man
then
might
leave
have a
them
brain
there.
hemorrhage.
Yeah, like, and leave them there without medical attention. It's
Yeah,
like,
like, bro, I've never
like
seen you
they are
dial a
very
phone.
likely fucked forever.
Like, I've
if
never
not
seen you
dead.
call 911. That man is bleeding out on the floor. So, but like, but Joker's still alive. What would you do without me? Yeah. So if you're gonna be consistent, don't suddenly be like,
Yeah.
no, this one gets to live. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Anyway, what's
Especially
next?
when it's for like no reason, yeah.
Yeah.
So next up, it's kind of these are very similar to my last input of surrogate representation. This is the in quotes the friend roles. So in especially a lot of bad they kind of cover this in Not Another Teen Movie very well, but it's still what is going on over there?
Sorry, I was mixing a drink that has ice cubes in it. Apologies.
Cocktails at 9 a.m. This guy, Don Draper would be proud. So in a lot of teen comedies, especially like the 90s, early 2000s, this was a thing where you have boilerplate characters. You have the fat funny guy. You have the lesbian who's like got a little bit of dump in her trunk and like a nose ring. Her hair's done alternatively. You've got the one black guy that apparently goes to the prep school. Like it just like, goes down the line. Like you look at the poster and you know everything about all the characters except maybe the main character, and even probably then.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that's fine in a comedy, but it's kind of expected because it's about the jokes. It's not about the story or the depth of the character necessarily. It can be a la see Ted Lasso, but that it kind of makes sense. However, as time has gone on, that has become so the norm where in so many TV shows and movies, if you show me the poster and if you show me a still of the character in their natural habitat or just a normal stance for them, I can tell you way too much about their character, which for a tertiary character is fine. If it's, the guy at the bagel stand, I probably should be able to know plenty about him if he's going to be a, character I see for 5 seconds. It's fine and arguably good for me to know a lot about his character in just his visage. That's okay. But when it's a character that has lines, that inputs on the story, like follow is it the Micromachines line or the more than meets the eye?
That's Transformers.
Is that Transformers? I wasn't sure. Yeah, Transformers. Like, have them be a little bit more Transformery. Just have them a little bit more than like meets the eye.
Yeah.
And it just like does it. It's like you can look back at so many movies then and too many movies now, my opinion, where it's like I look at the character and just if you look at their face and you look at their stance, you can write a paragraph about them and you're going to be right far too often. Not that people aren't who they are, but they shouldn't be all they are on the surface. Because that's like so infrequently the truth with people. Yeah. People have like bad days, people have depth, people have things that they're trying to, that they don't want to talk about, that they're embarrassed to talk about, whatever. And you have none of that in any of your characters so constantly is to just deny any intrigue or any depth. And I think that's to deny any realism or any story.
Yeah.
Thus, bleh. Bleh. What else you got up on the list?
Feh.
Feh. Hold on. This is just for hold on. This is just for us. Okay, continue.
Stop. I said I was gonna dunk on it. Here we go. Part of the reason I hated Pierce Brosnan as James Bond, the bad guys always missed. I hate it. I hate
To
it.
be fair, that is a 007 problem, not just a Pierce Brosnan problem.
It's true, but like at least Daniel Craig gets shot once. Like,
Yeah, that's fair.
I think he actually gets shot a couple times. It is more infrequent than it should be. But yes, there's the constant thing of like the good guy can never miss a shot. Like the good guy has an aimbot, and
Yeah.
the bad guys are AI on stupid. Like,
Yeah. Then me at 7 years old on a bender, just like
yeah, like the main
Can't find the
character.
screen,
The main
let alone-
character has fucking aim like an esports pro on a lethal level of Adderall, and like everyone they're fighting is drunk as shit and uncoordinated to start. Like it's insane. Like stormtroopers are like the emblematic example
Yeah,
of this.
the
They couldn't
epitome
hit
of
the
this.
broadside of a fucking barn. Like
It's like there's this great oh shoot, what's his name? I just spaced. No. I have a poster of his on my wall and I cannot remember his name. Who's the guy that makes those funny YouTube videos about animals?
I was like, I
animals.
swear to God, you need to narrow the funny YouTube videos.
No,
Or
just
not
like-
Philip DeFranco. Zay Frank.
Zay Frank, thank you. Sorry, I'm looking at his poster right now. I'm sorry, Zay. So Zay Frank, before he did those, at one point, before even YouTube, I think, or like YouTube was popping off, he had a thing where he made a video a day for a year
Yeah.
back in like the mid 2000s, and he had one about it was like back when like John Kerry was running against Bush or something like that, and he's like. John Kerry fucked up something so much. He's like, it's like you missed shooting an elephant with a bullet the size of an elephant. It's like that's totally what that reminds me of. It's just like, how the fuck did you miss this much? They're just like right there.
Yeah. Like, and I understand that, like, the reality is that, you miss most shots and whatnot. It's like, but when people feel bullet immune through just sheer, through numbers, not like because they're wearing armor or because they have a healing factor or whatever, or the only people tanking bullets have a healing factor. Like, come on. Like,
Yeah.
like they can't always miss. At some point, we're bound to roll the fucking D20 as a 20 in natural crit. Fuck your AC.
Yeah, it is such a bad and annoying constant trope that it's just kind of ridiculous. And then like it makes it even weirder. Like I think the reason they do it is so that like when somebody gets shot it feels like out of nowhere, but at the same time it's like it removes stakes in too many situations and then just adds it, like it's like a binary system as opposed to being a realistic system.
But it's like there's a lot of things where you can just like you can have somebody get winged, like you can have somebody take one to the leg and like be less mobile, or you can have someone get shot in like the guts and they don't die immediately. It takes you hours to bleed out if you're gut shot, but like there's so many options and it's like it is very binary. Like you get shot in the heart, shot in the brain, or not at all. It's like
Yeah, exactly.
come on.
Nobody's ever taken a bullet to the knee in like anything ever.
Yeah, and like the few times I'm okay with it is when everybody's kind of missing and like the hero can't just fucking snap John Wick people. Like okay, fine.
I mean, speaking of John Wick, he gets hurt. 2, that one's a lot about tactics, too, which I really appreciate. There's not like the bad guys don't miss that frequently as much as he doesn't give them opportunity to shoot him as much.
Yes, there is always exceptions to this rule.
Yeah, no. Like I'm not saying exceptions. I think like this is a proof that we can do the opposite of this.
Yeah, you can always do things smart, and like you can also have it where it makes sense why your protagonist is fighting with an aimbot on and whatnot. Like you can write your way out of this for sure, but just too often people don't, and it's just because.
If you want to see, by the way, if you would like to see a good antithesis of this, viewers at home and or my co-host, there's this very gritty 2000s movie called The Way of the Gun. It's an early Benicio del Toro movie, I think. It's got James Caan, a couple other names. But the way they did the shooting system in this game is they hyper-realized it. Everybody misses a lot. and they like that's just a real thing in life. Like most, unless your target isn't moving or they don't know you're there, and even then, your hit percentage is going to be like very few people have a hit percentage like that high. It's kind of like baseball, right? You step up to the plate, you're a all-star if you can hit just under half the time you come to bat. You would be like, if you hit half the time you came to bat, you would be first ballot
If you're batting 400, you're insane.
Yeah, nobody's batted like 4-point effect. Nobody's batted 400 the length of their career ever. It's never happened. People have batted that for a season, but it's never happened for their whole entire career. Nobody's averaged 400 their whole entire career, which is insane if you think about it. But it's that hard to hit a ball. Now imagine hitting something that doesn't want to get hit and is running. Like, it's like really hard.
Yeah, I think the rough average is something like 10%, maybe.
For shots hit?
Yeah.
Yeah. And in Way of the Gun, so much of the movie is people shooting, being relatively accurate, but shooting and just emptying their mag. Taking the marine approach of just... I remember, I don't know how current this is. I'd have to ask our inside source, but I remember listening to this thing back on the History Channel about Marines in Vietnam, and their kind of ethos on combat was put more bullets downrange at them than they're putting at you, and you're going to win. Try to be accurate, but just get more at them. And like that's the ethos in this movie. Is just there's a lot of firefights, and they're just like empty the mag, reload, empty the mag, reload, empty the mag, reload, and like put it where you're pretty sure they are, and just go and move. And the blocking, the fight choreography blocking for a gunfight is, other than John Wick coming out recently, up until then, I think it was unmatched. It would be interesting to compare it to John Wick. They also do a really good job at doing bullet count, especially given like this movie came out in 2000. My understanding is that they are very accurate to mag length. So if for the antithesis, highly recommend checking that out.
What's next on this hit parade?
Well, since we were talking about bad guys always missing, this is in a very follows the train brother of the trope, in that group fights, but only one at a time, guys. We got to keep it classy.
Ah, yes, the Queen's rules nonsense.
Yeah. You'll see this constantly in basically everything. I can only think of one movie where this doesn't really happen, but every movie where it doesn't happen, it's because the character is actively fighting against that metric. Like, I can only think of, like, you stated while we were coming up with these, because yes, we do plan, albeit very little, that in the raid, they do a good job at avoiding this, but it's because the fights are usually not gobs of people, but small amounts, and it's done in hallways.
Like 3 or 4 people, usually in a... Alright, so my quick... Because I have a modicum of experience fighting multiple people, albeit in a relatively controlled setting, but still, there's something that you don't appreciate, and it's the weight of another human being. And even if they don't hit you, all they have to do is grab you. If you have somebody clinging to you, you don't get to move anymore. You just, even if it is like a 10-year-old child grabbing a leg, you can't run anymore. So the way you fight multiple people is you line them up. You put them behind each other, so you keep moving and force them to trip over each other. That's the only way you win.
You do the Spartan when you create a choke point.
Yes, that is the only way, and I do mean the only way you ever fight that. Your hands don't work independently. Your eyes cannot track 4 people and all their respective limbs at the same time. It does not work. And if someone grabs you, you lose.
Yeah.
That's it. That is how fighting multiple people works in reality land.
Yeah. Like, I love Ip Man, but the fight scene where he takes on like 10, 20 guys.
10 people in an open platform. No shot.
Yeah.
No shot.
And one, ridiculous. 2, if you watch the way they fight him, it's like 1 or 2 people advance at one time. There's 10.
Yeah, they're just standing.
If they just walk in and all throw a punch, he's kind of fucked.
If somebody just runs up behind him and slams his body into them, or just jumps for his legs, like he might be able to nimbly dodge 1 or 2. He ain't dodging 10. That's just not possible. And
so it's just situations like that are ridiculous. But a good counter to this is the raid. The original Old Boy. There's a fight again. It's in a hallway, and the guy does a very good job. One, the way they're fighting, it's like kind of really weird for a million reasons, but in like a believable sort of weird way. But he does a very good job at balancing the circumstance. I believe he's the only guy with a weapon, so that kind of helps a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, like so much of the times it's like this is bananas bullshit. This is like, why are we? And it's all, I think the reason this is bad, and I think the reason a lot of these are bad is because this will work, this will do this thing that we want to do, but it doesn't. It's just
like
you're half-assing it to get the outcome that you want, but it's not organic, it's not real, it's not true, it's not earned, like you're saying.
Yeah. That sorry, just came to me. Another really good example of someone who does this pretty well is watching movies that Jackie Chan directed. Because if you ever watch Jackie Chan's like fights, he's usually running to like put himself in a place where he can like fight one or two, where he fights one or two who's in his way out of desperation. Like he's never just standing his ground against 20 people. This shit doesn't happen for a very good reason. Like
that also feeds into somebody pointed out the best ethos. I think this is Every Frame of Painting. Highly recommend that channel, as always. He made a great video talking about Jackie Chan. Not only does that showcase in basically every single video, he's always fighting. He's always maneuvering it, so it's one-on-one. Or, he throws one in front of the other. He's definitely always making it that he's not doing these weird group fights that are just ridiculous.
Yeah.
But he's also always... It's kind of like the same thing with... oh, crap. Looney Tunes Bunny. Bugs Bunny.
Bugs Bunny.
There we go. Bugs Bunny always never picks a fight. It's always picked against him. Jackie Chan never picks a fight. He's always thrown into trouble and has to deal with it. So he's always running from it because he never wants the problem in the first place.
Yeah.
So he's running away from it. And then it's put upon him. So when he wins, it feels like an underdog story, even though he's a better fighter than all the people he's fighting against.
Yeah.
But since he didn't want it, he's not the bad guy. If he picks those fights and then wins, it's like he's an asshole.
Yeah, what
Same
a
with like
dick.
the Bugs Bunny role. Yeah. So by doing that, it sorry for the random aside, but it always like kind of fits it perfectly. But yeah, it's like you can't. If you want these circumstances, it like. Go the Beretta route or something like that. The game's hokey, but at least it makes sense why she's fighting this many. Like, because if you play those video games or you watch clips of the video game Beretta, it's like she's fighting a million people at once, but she's also got like guns and like big swords and stuff like that. It's like a mob fight.
Do you mean Bayonetta?
Bayonetta, sorry.
It's like Beretta.
That's a TV show, actually, I think. Anyway,
So,
whatever.
kind of
Yes, Bayonetta, sorry. But like, if you watch those, it makes sense.
She's got fucking superpowers. Like,
yeah, they got superpowers, but it's also the way in which that they're fighting a group of people. She's like the weapons she's using.
It's so cartoony. I love it.
It's so cartoony, but it tracks, right?
Yeah.
You don't ever look at that and go, why? Because all the villains are coming at her at the same time. She's just overpowering them because she's beyond badass, and they're just stooges. But in these, they have the bad guys trying to be badass, but then they're dumb as a bag of rocks and they're fighting, and it's just antiquated because they didn't want to do the work.
Yeah.
And and at the end of the day, that's a lot of what these tropes are problems, is they didn't want to do their homework. They just wanted a free win. Sure. And they, in quotes, get it, but they shouldn't.
Agreed.
And that's why we're taking them to task here on Super Bros.
Yeah. Telling it like it is. It's just why I've got to hit them with the stop shoehorning romance. Stop it. It doesn't need to be there.
Get some help.
Get some help. Stop. Get some help. I you know what? Listen, I understand romance shows up in odd and unlikely places, and I understand that, like, shared trauma is a thing that brings people closer together. And oh my god, it shows up way too frequently. Like, there's just too many things where it just feels fucking shoehorned in that's like, God, we gotta put some romantic entanglement. Gotta fucking
I can tell you
there.
why this is.
I mean, I'm sure there's a dozen reasons why this is.
It's just financial. They noticed that this is like back in the day. They noticed that movies that did not have romance in them versus the movies that did, one of them made more money. Just always.
Huh. Fair enough.
That's why, like, if like a perfect example of what the fuck. The only reason I know this is because I talked to another film nerd while we were at the one time we were at the what was that? The North Ashram that was like in the yeah. But there's this movie Bridge Over the River Kwai. 95% of the movie is just dudes in prisoner of war camps and then dudes trying to blow up a bridge at a prisoner of war camp in like Japan.
Yeah.
During World War II. there is 5 minutes of what could be confused as a love scene on a beach with one of the main characters making out with a chick in the waves. That's it. Why is it there? Because they needed a love scene. It's literally it. It's like it does nothing. It is so much, and it's there because hey, this makes, like, statistically this makes more money. Granted, I think that's one of those things where they're conflating issues to equal, like monetary profit. Like they didn't do their like full research.
Sure.
Like they did like
the correlation does equals causation,
Yeah,
not necessarily
exactly.
look at bigger context. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think one of the times it got weirdly self-aware was the show Legend of Korra, where they just kind of like for no reason and kind of abruptly, like Korra and one of the main guys of her little party just kind of end up dating, and then in like season 2 realize they have nothing to really ground their relationship on, so it just kind of falls apart, and they're like, why are we doing this? Like what are we doing? Why did we start this? It's like, that's a very good fucking question. Thank you for asking.
It does make sense why they get into a relationship in the first place, though, which I think is kind of nice. They're just kids.
Yeah, like, but it isn't.
I mean,
But
like,
it's just
if-
not. It's a complete nothing verse. So like in that case, but it just feels kind of goofy, like from an audience.
Yeah, but like
perspective.
I think it's good in that they notice it, but I don't think it's bad in that it happens. If that makes sense.
Sure.
Like the fact that like literally they have found that if you put like at a certain age group, if you put just people of the opposite sex in a room, the likelihood of them just like making out or doing other like sexually active teen things is just like ridiculous. They like it just happens. It's like they're kids that test like the hormones, like they're gonna fuck. It's like that's what young adolescents do when unattended.
Which is why the fact there's not a pregnant person at Hogwarts is the most unbelievable thing about that whole series.
That or they don't talk about the fact that you could just like
Just
wave a wand
magically
and like
abort a baby.
unprego my ego or something. I don't know. But like that's something that's gonna happen. So the fact that they get in a relationship, I think tracks. I think it's great writing that they get out of it though, because they don't really have anything in common other than being in the same like sphere.
Yeah.
Man, like for instance, like if you look at, have you heard like the stats on the Olympics? Like the Olympic Village?
Oh, and like the fact that
The
that place turns
tens
into
of thousands
Smuttville.
of condoms they go through.
Yeah.
They're from different countries. These people are, a lot of them aren't speaking the same language or not well. They are just fit people in the prime of their life around other fit people. They gonna fuck. Like, that's how that works. We are not that much better than animals. Deal with that fact. So the fact that these people hook up in a, in a kid show when they're both effectively athletes.
Here's my thing. I'm fine
Okay.
with that. Like I'm fine with
Okay.
that being a thing. I just don't like when it feels like we're all like there's just a perpetual attempt to shoehorn a relationship
Yeah.
that feels so grounded on dick.
Yeah,
all.
we need to meet the romantic quota.
Yes.
For this show.
And the fact
Yeah,
that
no,
sometimes it just fucking holds for some reason. I'm like,
Yeah.
why? How do you like these people? What is there about them that fucking magnetizes you? What moth and flame effect am I fucking watching?
Yeah. And if you're gonna do that, I think that you're pointing out the perfect issue is like they didn't do their writing homework. They don't have the characters have a reason to be together or
Like,
have anything
I'm-
and have it be anything in the story
Here,
because
I'm gonna fucking dunk on Harry Potter again. Why the fuck does Harry like Ginny? There's no fucking rationale. He doesn't
yeah, that
talk
one's
to her. It's
really
just out of
creepy.
fucking nowhere. It's this weird, creepy infatuation with his redheaded friend's sister. What the
Yeah.
fuck? Like, stop.
like
What are
2
you doing?
years younger sister too, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be cute. It would be like super weird.
Yeah. I mean, as much as that actually 2 years doesn't really matter, it's still weird when it's like you're 15, she's 13. It's like there's
I was
just
like, it matters when you're in high school though,
it
or
absolutely
in junior
matters.
high when they like first meet. Like, definitely puts you at like a different thing.
Like, it makes way more sense with Cho Chang.
Yeah.
Like, but
Same
it's-
age group, different house also makes a big difference. Like that kind of allure of the other.
Yeah, and like also like talk to her. Like he just Ginny was just like out of fucking left field and just garbage. Like what
It was
what
the,
happened
it was the
here?
first step towards Dumbledore was gay.
Yeah, it was so fucking out of nowhere and like abrupt. Must bang redhead. Like, what? Get the fuck out of here. Like, come on. So yeah, perfect example. We dunk on Harry Potter. Get the fuck out of here. All right, what's next?
All right. Before I take a deuce break, let's talk about Deus Ex Machina.
No.
Anybody? Okay.
Proceed.
So Deus Ex Machina is probably the epitome of bad tropes.
Cheap writing.
Yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, I'm really noticing the commonality, and I think it sounds like you are too, of just like so much of this is done to, meet a criteria handed down by an exec.
Sure.
And somewhere between they didn't have the time or they didn't want to put in the time or they didn't think the time was needed. And in our opinion, it shows. And Deus Ex is the perfect epitome of that in that, oh, we need to shore up this problem. How do we do it? Basically, like story magic without any of the like brickwork laid.
Yep.
You're just like, it's fixed. It's like, the fuck? Like, that's... Like,
and Superman saves the day. What?
This would be like the equivalent of, like, for us, this is like we've given out the paper to do to a student who we know is going to fail, and then out of nowhere they've failed the whole entire semester. Somehow they ace the final. Yeah. You don't go, oh, that makes sense. You go, how did you cheat? you don't accept it. You just go,
you
bullshit.
go, let me see your arms. I want to look for the writing. Like,
yeah, lift up that sleeve, Mulan. I need to see
Should I check the soda can, see if you printed a label on it? Like, come on now.
Yeah, it's like, it's bullshit. It's just cheating. It's all it is. It's just like writers being lazy. Like,
yeah,
as Jesse Pinkman says, we can't just keep letting him get away with this.
Yeah, I will say that you can set yourself up for a decent what feels like a Deus Ex, but again, I just fucking added the context, like that there has to be context for why there is some kind of intervention or something to that effect. Like, but if it's just out of fucking left field, surprise cavalry arrives, like, it's cheap. It is a way to bail out your characters and avoid killing people often, or to just remove consequences and ramifications for actions. And you've written yourself into a corner, and this is your bailout option. And it's cheap, and oftentimes it's transparent as fuck that you fucked up as a writer.
If you watch Game of Thrones season 1 through 5, and then you watch 6 through 8, that's the difference. 1 through 5, there is, as far as I can remember, there is no Deus Ex Machina moments. They just don't happen. People get punished. People, planned ahead. You could
sort of argue Tywin Lannister showing up.
They know he's coming, and they've already kind of won. But there's
context that you know he's on the way, and they just have to stall.
Yeah, and also they kind of won at that point, or they were doing a really good job at fending off.
Yeah, like that's
the only reason it feels like a loss is because of. Yeah,
that's the closest, and we can immediately go, well, not really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then after season 6, especially, I think the epitome of where I knew the show was fucked is the end of season 6 in the Battle of the Bastards, is the showing of Deus Ex. There's multiple, just like, oh, cuz. It's like, what? Like, Jon Snow should die in Battle of the Bastards. The way he does that fight, he should just die. And instead, he doesn't, because his plot armor, which is like another stand-in for Deus. Yeah. It's basically a write-in for Deus Ex Machina's plot armor. It's like, yeah, they just like didn't want him to die, so reasons don't matter anymore.
Yep. But going from the bad up to the good of things that we like seeing.
Yay!
It's not used often, but I do have a soft spot for the surprise child criminal. It's a really odd sentence to say out loud.
It is.
But there's, it's a great little subversion of expectation, because it's like, the couple times I see it, it's like someone who's posing that they're kidnapped, and it's like they are not.
Yeah.
There's an episode of Fringe, which I think is a little bit of an underrated sci-fi show, but anyways, where it's like there's these two men who've kidnapped this kid, And so these two guys go into a store and they get like arrested, and they start freaking like but someone else drives the kid away, and the two guys like, we were being like they're basically being mind controlled by this child,
Mm-hmm.
and they're playing the role of his quote unquote abductors, and he's pulling the strings like. And so now one of the main characters is now this kid's new thrall and his effective getaway driver.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so it's like he thinks he's trying to help this kid by driving, because like the two guys go into the store, so he runs and grabs the car and drives him away. It's like, well, you're just his new victim. I was like, oh shit, it's such a good little subversion of expectation. So, like you see, there's an episode of Cowboy Bebop that does it.
Yeah, I'm looking that up right now. Actually, it's
Pretty early.
Yeah, I think it's episode 5. Dark Side Tango.
That sounds right. Because I think it's before Ed shows up.
Yeah, it's pretty early on. Yeah, I think it's Dark Side Tango. Oh no, God no. No.
What?
It directed me to the Netflix version, I think.
No! Not you. Never you.
I don't know what episode it is, but it is pretty early on. That one's a great one.
Yeah.
Also, you got the addition of harmonica to give you that extra juice, which I'm a big fan. Another great one is, slight spoiler alert, but this movie's going on almost 30 years old at this point, Primal Fear. It's Edward Norton's like second film role, technically. I think it, like, by all accounts, it was basically his first. Is like the way people note it. It's like just a huge coming out party. I think technically only in America, which was that was an educational film. Okay. Yeah, so Primal Fear was his first movie, and it has very much that aspect to it, and it's fucking amazing.
Yeah. There's a horror movie that does it, Identity, where you're trying to figure out who's effectively murdering a bunch of people.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say I think that's where you got that idea from. It's a great one, but when I saw that as your pick, I was like, I think I know where he's going with this one.
Yeah, it's actually my first thought was Fringe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then I was like, oh yeah, goes for that too. But yeah, so it's a nice subversion of expectation.
Yeah.
And a good kind of, it's a good twist that it's pretty easy to keep hidden because no one expects it's the fucking 10-year-old.
Exactly. Nobody's first guessing clue is the 10-year-old in the library with a rake.
Nobody's like, pre-adolescent child, arrest him. Like,
yeah, Sherlock Holmes never turns and like points at the 8-year-old in the corner. He's like, he did it. Like that's never the lead off.
yeah. All right, what's next on the good side of things? Well,
from one villainous act to another, I'm a huge fan of the inevitable, the unstoppable evil. It can be in a horror movie way. It can be in a dramatic way. It's always pretty good. I think I like it less in horror movies just because that's kind of the go-to for a lot of movie, like villains in horror movies, is that it is kind of like Mike Myers is basically, you can, you can put him to bed for a little bit, but he's going to be back, obviously.
Yeah.
But my favorite one, and one that'll come up here in a moment, is the operative in Serenity. You've got Javier Bardem in No Country for Old Men. It's this evil that seemingly will persist and stop at nothing and shows no inclination of slowing down or like a weak point. They're just like, they are. There's no, like, it's almost as if they're not evil, but they're a thing. And another good one in a way is in Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is which one is it? What's the one that tunnels?
Sloth.
Sloth. That's what I was gonna guess, but it didn't feel right. But Sloth is just this. He's almost not evil. He's just is.
Yeah, he's got a job to do. I've got to dig.
Yeah, I've got to dig, and he's just like doing his thing. It's like, damn. It's so cool, and when done correctly, it's a great metaphor for so many menaces in our society. Like, if you want to look at it this way, big business is basically an inevitable evil. It is too ingrained and has too much money and too much power to ever be stopped.
No.
So it's a great metaphor to represent that if you want to write it in that way, or, look at it that way. Death is inevitable, and arguably one of the, like, depending upon how you want to look at the world, is, evil in its own way. But at the same time, it will never stop. It will never, as far as humans are considered, we will never stop dying. That's one of the things that we are guaranteed to experience.
One of my favorite kind of seemingly unstoppable evils was from the web serial Twig, and they spend so much time trumping up the Infante, who's the crown prince of this empire, and they finally actually just fight him, and he's a big experiment, as is all nobility in that series. And they just can't fucking kill this guy for so long. Like, they spend so much effort and throw so much stuff at him, and like, the damage is only skin deep, and he just keeps getting back up. They're like, what the fuck?
Why won't he just die?
Yeah, like, they at one point make this giant experiment thing and basically throw it at him. It's this big stitched abomination, and he just kind of stops it with one hand and is like, that's the best you can do? It's like, oh god. Like,
I love and hate those moments. Or not hate them, but they just like when you're really rooting for the characters, you feel so crestfallen.
Yeah.
You're like, they've got him, and then it's like, oh no.
yeah, but it makes so much sense because he is the big bad of the series, and it's like the very end. It's like the last plot arc, and it's them trying to fight him because he's like, there's two things that they know they need to beat, and it's effectively two forms of establishment, and he's one of them, and he does not go quietly, and it's super cool because you've waited so long to watch him actually fight because he's just a monster, and it does not fucking disappoint.
Yeah. Well, from one bit of inevitability to another.
I love a good monologue. There's just something, if you've got a good guy who can do a good fucking monologue, it's magic. It's fucking poetry. I also love people that are opportunistic and just punch them while they're monologuing. But just like, you know what? If you're gonna fucking talk. Great example, The Incredibles.
He starts monologuing.
He caught me monologuing. I can't believe this. I love The Incredibles. I can quote way too much of The Incredibles verbatim. It's a weird flex, but I can do it.
It's a good flex, though.
It's a good flex. But Syndrome does the fucking classic villain trope of talking himself up. Because, yeah, he's made himself, and then he gets a fucking tree thrown at him. Like, I appreciate that Mr. Incredible just like, if you're just gonna fucking stand there and fucking talk my ear off.
Also, love the tidbit of that they set it up with the conversation between Bob Parr and Frozone earlier, where they talked about monologuing.
He
like
starts monologuing.
He starts monologuing. It's like they set up.
I'm an epitaph.
Exactly. They set up that circumstance with previous history the way, old cohorts would talk about work, because that's basically what that is.
For them was the job.
Yeah. And then it comes back later. It's just like, it's so beautiful when they do full circle like that.
One more jolt to his death ray. I'm an epitaph. Yeah, it's so good. Another great example is in Serenity, where the operative is doing his kind of initial confront with
Mal.
He tries to, we're talking about like men, and you can't beat us because of this, and just to show it, I've come with no weapon, and Bouch's like, great, and just shoots him. Like, I'm not here to fuck around. Like, just, if you're just gonna fucking talk, I'm just gonna hit you.
Yeah.
Like,
if you're gonna talk and let me know that I am in no harm, or that you've got a soft underbelly, I will take advantage of this.
if you're gonna just fucking jerk yourself off like that, I'm just, you're vulnerable. I'm gonna do something about it.
Yeah.
Like, to come back to Toy one last time, because it does this once, where the main character, his whole gimmick is basically he can talk his way out of everything. He's this sublime social manipulator. And at one point, one dude's just fed up with it and stabs him in the chest. He's just like, shut up. I'm just like, thank you. Finally, someone just hits him. Because he can't fight for shit.
I don't know what this is, but I remember a circumstance in a story or a movie where a character is known to have a literal magical silver tongue, where the minute they start talking, they can start to they can control you. And so instead of the idea was to go in and be reasonable and try to like find a mutually beneficial kind of agreement for both parties.
Yeah.
But one of the guys has kind of like troubleshot this out, and they go in, and the minute the guy opens his mouth, he just kills him. He's like, there was no, like, the minute he talks, we lose. He's like, we can't let that happen. Like, that kind of, like, insightful, like, Han shot first kind of moment where I was like, yeah, that's not how this works. You have to play this smart. And so to find that, kind of, like, hit them while they're monologuing, you have to find your opening. And to have the good guy do it is such a breath of fresh air. Because so frequently it's the bad guy that interjects, the good guy will try to be talking reason, and then the bad guy will just stab him because that's what bad guys do. It's like, why can't the good guys also be proactive?
There is another good example of that in The Expanse, where there's this big kind of corporate head, and they're basically going to arrest him, and he's like, I'm not going to stay in. He's like, I'm going to pay a bunch of money, and they're going to let me out. And I'm going to do this again. And this time I'll make sure you can't. And one dude's just like, well, you're right. Boom. And shoots him in the head. He's like, what? He's telling the truth. He's going to get back out. It's like, I'm not going to let that happen.
He watched the end of Lord of War and was like, not today, Nick Cage.
Yeah. And like, well, the thing is, like, the main character, like, Holden is like affronted. And it's like, I can't believe he did this. And then talks to Naomi. She's like, no, it makes sense.
His tracks.
He's like, yeah, he's a belter. And we have a history of getting screwed over by corporate fucking Martians or people from Earth. It's like, that's what was going to happen here. So we took away that option. I get it. Not saying it was right, but I get it. He's like,
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I mean, to continue to go back to the same mine, it's like, I think it's, what is it, like episode 2 or 3 of Firefly, when they don't do the job, then what's-his-face's crew comes to, like, kind of call him to heel. They catch him, and they're like, he's like, all right, tell Nitska that this is the money, we couldn't do the job, we're all friends here, I'm not taking his money and not doing the job, here's his money, we call it square. And he's like, keep the money for a funeral, buy a casket, blah, 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 blah. He's like, I tried, and just like kicks him into the engine.
The next guy, like, this is Nitska. Yeah, I'll fucking take it.
Yeah, but we agree.
That's fine.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, you gotta play by your universe's rules, and don't be so much of somehow being. Yeah, exactly. Don't be stupid. So much of being a good guy in way too many films is being naive to the reality of your circumstance, which I'm very fucking over if that's not clear by my tone. But it's like, that's so perfect. It's like, yeah, this is the way the circumstance is going to play out. I have to play accordingly. Otherwise, gonna get got.
Yeah. All right, what's next on the good list?
Kind of following with our chain of logic in a different sort of way, as opposed to good guys that are self-aware of their circumstance. It's bad guys that are. Again, returning to the same mind, because apparently this is subtly a Josh Wobbins freaking fan show. The operative in Serenity, when confronted, I think I've said this like saying 2 or 3 times on this podcast, but when confronted about, being villainous, he's just like, I don't kill children. The operative's like, I do. And he says it with no disdain for himself, or it's just a thing that has happened and will happen. I have no qualms killing children because I believe what I am doing is for the best. And the self-aware bad guy is what the trope I'm getting at. Another great example in recent memory via Marvel, which is nice, is Thanos. Just like, yeah, I know what I'm doing is not the nicest thing in the world. He doesn't think killing is fun or fine. He is not some cartoony villain. He is, a cartoon villain. Just wanted to say that for some reason. But he understands that killing people is bad, but he believes that it is for the greater good and truly sees that and knows what he's doing has, villainous tones to it, but also cares so much for the universe and wants it to succeed and believe this is the only way that it can.
The ends justify the means. He's the walking, talking epitome of that.
But not just that. I think there's people that the ends justify the means, and they're like, that's fine, that makes me the good guy, and they don't accept the bad with the good. They just overlook the bad for the good.
He recognizes why people would oppose him.
Yeah.
He is
in
down
no
with this.
way.
You're welcome to your choices. You're not going to stop me, but you can try.
Yeah. I need to do this because it is necessary. And I think it's what truly, for me, makes a well-rounded and truly terrifying bad guy is when they're just like,
I am what I am.
Yeah, there's no talking to be had. There's only fighting and stuff. Because there's bad guys where it's like, well, maybe with therapy, or like they're just so crazy that they're not even a human being anymore. But when they have that human element of being that self-aware and moving past it, it's like, holy fuck, I
think the only kind of like crazy self-aware I'd make a mention of is like Heath Ledger's Joker. It's like, I'm a dog chasing cars.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know what to do. I actually caught one. Like, he knows he's batshit. He knows he's burning it all down, and he's totally fine doing it.
Yeah.
Like, he's not oblivious. He knows consequences.
He is very much, like kind of a misnomer in this category, but yeah.
Yeah, but he's still kind of like, he is aware of what he's doing, and he knows, he's not crazy. Wow, he is absolutely crazy. But, like,
I think that's where it starts to get a little haywire.
He's not, I don't know if unfounded is the right term, but, like, he's aware of what he's doing and why he's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's fine with that. It's not in his mind, it's not misguided or misdone.
Yeah.
Yeah. But speaking of crazy, I'm a fan of some unreliable narrators.
Feeling targeted.
If done right, I do like unreliable narrators. It introduces a very interesting skew on perception, and can be a nice kind of gotcha or twist for the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And there's two really good examples that I can think of off the top of my head, and one would be Mr. Robot. The second season, slight spoilers, he starts the season in prison. And you do not know that. You just think he talks about like living out this routine to try and keep himself sane because he's no longer hacking, and he doesn't want to give himself access to a computer again because he doesn't want to go back to that lifestyle. Well, part of that is because he's in jail. And the reason he keeps hanging around with the same fucking people is because they're the people in his cell block. So, and it finally does this pull, and like he's talking about, he's been living with his mother. It's like, no, that's just the guard who's always watching over his cell block.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Do they do that like whole character thing where like it was a facade typified by the character, where it's just like what you've been shown is actually false?
Yes. Entirely. Okay. Like, you believe he's been in his house mostly. Or like he said he moved back in with his mom.
Is the visual of him being in his house with his mom and stuff like that? And then it like changed.
Yes.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they basically replay stuff where he's like actually in a jumpsuit, not in his hoodie, and she's actually a prison guard, not just some, middle-aged woman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The other one is, and I didn't realize how much I apparently like this series. Twig does a good job of this because the main character's going crazy.
Yeah.
It's one of the few times I've actually seen written crazy and like progressively more crazy actually work out pretty well. Because that's really hard to do, and like they do a really clever thing of introducing. He talks to phantoms of his friends, basically, as he justifies it as part of his thinking process. Or like he try and see it from their point of view, and how they would problem solve it. So it kind of makes sense. He's like trying to incorporate other problem-solving strategies to tackle something. But eventually they stop going away at will, and they're just following him. and he's just seeing more and more of them because his brain is turning into fucking mush. And like at one point, he's talking to what he thinks is an apparition, and it's actually his friend. And he's like surprised when he touches him. He's like, "What the fuck?" He's like, "No, I'm fucking real. So I chased you down. Like, you are unstable."
Jeez.
Yeah, it gets hairy towards the end.
That is rad.
Yeah, and at a certain point, you're like, I don't know if you're talking to a real person, and you don't either. I'm concerned.
I mean, like, a great showcasing this in a visual manner is it kind of sounds very similar to Fight Club.
Yes.
And that, like, I mean, you have to backtrack to see that it's that, but I mean, that it's hard to show an unreliable narrator if from the start they are noticeably unreliable. You have to believe them to then find out they are wrong to have them be unreliable.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay. So in like Fight Club, it's a great showcasing of it. Another really fun one. This one's a very different take on it, but I would recommend American Animals to anybody who hasn't seen it, because it's this very interesting movie in that it's a somewhat, it's not fictional, but it definitely, there's a little bit of liberties that I'm sure they played with. It very much took a story that's 100% based in real life, that they talked to the people that were involved, and then made a movie, made a movie while also making a documentary about it. It's very wild, but there's a really cool circumstance, and it's really mild when it comes to unreliable narrators. Because most of it is just like corroborated because it's a heist that 4 people took part of. And they have all 4 people on record talking about it, and a lot of them agree on certain things. But then there are aspects that they disagree on.
Yeah.
And there's one moment in the movie that I just, as a cinephile, just kind of like jerk off to, where there's 2 characters that remember when they talked about doing the job. Like they like, settled that they were going to do it.
Yep.
One of them remembers it taking place outside of like a Kroger's parking, like in a Kroger's parking lot while sitting in a car smoking a cigarette. And the other one remembers doing it at a house party. So they're telling this story, and it keeps cutting in between, like back and forth in between the 2 circumstances that they believed it happened in.
Yeah.
And at one point they're smoking a cigarette outside, and so they're breathing cold air. And then it does like a match cut, and he's breathing cold air inside of the guy's car, even though the car is on, which it wouldn't be happening. And so there's this mixture of elements, which is just kind of fun. So I don't know if that one technically is an unreliable narrator, but it definitely, there are aspects of it, especially as the story goes on, where one of the guys is like, yeah, I had this guy who was going to sell the work for us, but he's the only person that met him. And so there's this conjecture as to whether the fence really existed, or if he's completely fabricated by this guy who may or may not be a bit of a loon. But yeah, unreliable narrator is very fun.
Yeah.
I think it's also the hardest thing to pull off and have your
hard
story.
To do well.
Yeah. Because if it's too obviously unreliable, then your reader gets lost. And if it's too subverted that he's unreliable, then your reader, watcher doesn't notice, right?
Yeah. It's a hard line to tell, because it either feels like you're being, like you're almost just wasting our time doing it, or
just having too much fun.
Yeah. Anyway,
Agree.
What is next on the Good Parade?
Well, my last addition to the Good Trope Parade is The Noble Sacrifice.
Classic.
It's a classic. I am the biggest sucker for this.
Oh yeah.
If any of you have listened before, you will know just how many times this has come up. It is one of my biggest pen chants. I love it way too much. Whether it be Wreck-It Ralph, I think it's the end of Starship Troopers 2 or 3. There's a million zillion movies. There are multiple music videos that people have put up on YouTube. I think one of the best ones is put to oh crap, what is his name? It's like Bon Jovi. Hold on, I'm gonna look for this really quick. Bon Jovi, Noble Sacrifice.
Living
Let's
on
see
a
if this
Prayer
gets
or something.
Yeah, it's living on a prayer, I think. Hold on. Living on a prayer. Sacrifice. See if there's a video somebody did. I'll see if I can find it. I will include it. Um, uh, I'll see if I can find it. It's somebody made this great like music video. I think it was "Living on a Prayer" of Bon Jovi, and it's to all these like noble sacrifice moments. Just like it's my life. Just like people just like using machine guns and just like holding the fort down as they just like get overrun. It's just like it's kind of awesome. It just ticks all my boxes as far as like my base level viewing needs to go. I just love it. I can't get enough. The guy, like one of the best moments for me, cathartic wise, is watching Game of Thrones where Hodor holds the door for the last time. Like things like that. I can literally feel goosebumps roaming up and down my arm.
Yeah.
Or I think the biggest one for me and one of the earliest ones I remember is Choji and Naruto and like the original arc, just kind of sacrificing himself for Shikamaru. It's like the feels.
Yeah.
Ah!
Yeah.
It's just like it's hokey, sure, but it's just one of those things that like it's so base level a human thing to connect with, that giving everything for someone, it's like an intangible human element to just feel awe, shock, and like admiration for it, that you can't, for me at least, I can't not be like, yeah, do it. It's just so pure, man.
It's agreed. It's so hard to not like. Yeah, watching a show this week, watching Mob Psycho 100, and one of those happened. I was like, didn't come to watch this to feel things, you fuckers. Like, especially when people are willing to kill like well-established characters.
Yeah.
Like, when writers are willing to do that, and it feels like a good and authentic, like, this is the way out. It's like, oh, I hate you, but I love it. Don't kill him. Come back. No.
Yeah, when done right, the kind of just hold the line moment, it's just so, oh god.
Yeah.
Oh. Oh.
So, my last contribution to wrap up this list is I'm a sucker for the old mentor. And it's never a proper list if I can't mention Avatar at least once. Because Iroh is perfect. I will fight you. He's the best example of this in history. God rest the voice actor's soul, whose name I just blanked on.
One sec. Keep going. I'll look it up.
Thank you. Mako.
Mako. Yeah.
Yeah. But I do appreciate the kind of old font of wisdom. It's like they've been there, they've done it, and they know better. Like to a degree, well, I don't think he's done necessarily the best. Like Obi-Wan Kenobi is a pretty good example. It's not hard to find, like in speaking of rest in peace for Kevin Conroy, when they used him as the old grizzled Bruce Wayne in Batman Beyond.
Yeah.
And also, moment of silence, the voice of Batman is dead. Cancer, you bitch. But I like them usually because they play such a good foil to the young upstart guns and emotional voice versus voice of like rationale, reason, and stability.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the foil they can often play, and it doesn't feel shoehorned necessarily, tossing like life advice and morality from them either. Like, to date, I don't think there's a more emotional scene in a show for me than when Zuko comes back to Iroh and like tries to apologize, and Iroh just throws himself at him and hugs him.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I can already feel the waterworks coming. Um, like it's just it's such a good moment, and that I think not that it can't exist outside of that dynamic, but it's so good for it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's my last add to the list.
That's a good one. And while this may not be Father's Day, maybe while we go on an ad break here, reach out to somebody
Oh,
who's mentored you. Reach out to your Batman and say thanks. Because we don't know when the inevitability that is death is going to come find us or come find the ones we love. So let them know how much they mean to you. See you in a bit.
do you enjoy glorifying serial killers and worshiping crime in all its forms? What? No, of course not. But do you? Don't worry, you're not alone. There are tons of people who get a thrill hearing about the horrible, wacky, and sadistic things that the worst of us will do to one another. And thanks to the forced incarceration of the world during COVID, the desire for true crime documentaries has only ballooned into a social phenomenon rivaled only by the MCU. And whether you want to look at crimes gone wrong, bank robberies gone sideways, or just some of the truly awful and twisted and sadistic things from the minds of Ted Bundy and the like, you can be sure that you'll find someone to narrate it at you in a pace that is just too slow for normal conversation. What are you waiting for? Find your correct criminal today.
Hey, folks. Welcome back to the show.
Apparently being hosted by Goofy.
Maxie, your dad doesn't just fuck, he fucks.
That was the sentence I
if you
never thought
haven't
I'd
seen that
hear.
meme, Google that shit. That's a banger.
Oh. Um,
So what story ideas you got rocking around the old noggin?
maybe because of too much recent ingestion of political stuff with midterms, not to date ourselves too hard here. But I've been thinking about what happens if society collapses. It's dark. It's real dark. This is super, super off the cuff, but I've been wondering what happened, like what goes first if trust in the government completely dissipates.
Mm-hmm.
And if anarchy starts, and, you know, if people just start narking politicians left, right, and center because they don't believe in the establishment anymore, and they've lost all good faith with politicians and standard order that keeps things running. What goes first? And what does that look like for people on the ground? Like, how quick is that ripple felt by people who live in, just fucking doing standard 9 to 5 shit?
Yeah.
And potentially really quickly, because one of the first things to be questioned is enforcement. And like, if genuine political unrest hit maximum level, can cops stop it? Probably
The
not.
answer may not surprise you.
Probably not. And if they can't stop it, I mean, there's the obvious things like rioting, looting, but then there's things like if someone is more inclined to ensure that, you don't recover, you can take that opportunity to start slamming infrastructure, like power, water, and the like. It opens the option up for domestic terrorism. It opens up the option for some Purge-esque revenge fantasies, and you can just start killing people left, right, and center. If you're better armed and better prepared, well, you're pretty much invulnerable. And so, at what point do things ever kind of quiet down? Do they hit back to a sense of normalcy, quote unquote? Because you can be remarkably normal in a lot of things, like kind of crazy to think about, but right now, if you took a camera and looked over at Kiev, it looks normal, which is odd to say. But like there was guy interviewed there about the war like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, at this point. And he's like, yeah, like restaurants still run, people still go to work and like drive around town and stuff and hang out. Like, they're in a fucking war zone. And people are still goddamn waiting tables.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you can establish a sense of normalcy in fucking any kind of situation. So it's like, when does that rebalance back out? I may need to stop watching the news. What about you?
So as we were talking through the idea of tropes today, I had this odd idea that I kind of want to play around with, which I'm loosely calling stereotypical steroids, wherein you'd make a movie, maybe a sketch show. I don't think it has like long implications because it is just wacky, but having a IP where the characters, when they do X, Y, or Z, it pushes them into a stereotype. So if a character starts to like work out a little bit, his intelligence just automatically drops off. Like if, you know, the guy that was gonna be valedictorian does 3 push-ups, he becomes the like vice valedictorian, or the, I don't know what the second
Co-valedictorian.
co-valedictorian is. You know, he drops a rung. If, you know, if one of the characters gets popular, they lose, you know, X, Y, or Z. You know, if like each,
They become
regardless,
completely unempathetic.
yeah. You know, if a character makes out with somebody of the same sex, they get, you know, brownie points in one direction but demerits in another. This kind of like it's almost like a point system where if you to gain one in an area, you have to lose one in another, but in like the most derived, or not derived, the most
Contrived.
derivative, contrived, thank you, kind of tropey sort of way. And just kind of like play around with the idea, see if you can insert a story, but, you know, also it can just be contrived because the whole entire thing is based on this bananas premise. So it's what I'm gonna do probably after we finish recording today. Is just dick around and like look for all the tropes and just see how it's like maneuver characters around.
I like it.
You watch anything fun recently, bro?
I have. I mentioned earlier, I love the show Mob Psycho 100. It's the way they draw characters.
What about Mob Psycho 99?
No, get out. It's, I'm gonna say, it's made by Studio Bones, who do a phenomenal job with animation. Which, if you look at this on the surface, does not look that way.
No, it does not.
I
Looks
say
like chicken scratch.
their animation or their character drawings look fucking childish almost. Like they're really basic, really rounded shapes. Like it's very basic. However, do not let that fucking fool you. The show slaps. And when it comes to doing like fight animation, nobody does it better.
Yeah.
It is awesome to watch. Like cartoony look aside. And I think it's the last season that they're doing for the show.
Is it like done after the season?
I think so. I believe
Okay.
I believe they said 3 is the last season, and it's really good. It's a really fun show. The main character is an Esper, so he has like psychic powers essentially, and crazy shit ensues. And he's basically this overpowered kid who is really apathetic in a lot of ways. But he spikes to 100 if he gets emotionally overwhelmed, essentially, and shit goes bananas. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's great. Just go watch it. What are you doing?
Or if you want something a little less kind of grand and actiony, I would recommend checking out Banshees of Inisherin. Just watched it the other day with my roommate. It's a dark comedy by Martin McDonagh, who did In Bruges, Three Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri. I think I got the name of that town right. Uh, it's a very weird movie. It's funny in bizarre ways. It's kind of, at its core, I think it's a very interesting character and ideal paradigm of like looking at friendship and looking at legacy and looking at or kind of mortality. I really don't want to say more because I think, not that it's spoiler, but I really don't want people to have my take when they go into it, because I think so much of it is your own.
Yeah, it's all based on how your initial viewing, for sure. I respect that.
I would really recommend it though. It's great. I think it is kind of, in a different way, it kind of is an all-time banger for me. Like when I watched Everything Everywhere All at Once, that movie just overtook me. And the movie is just like gonna be one of the best of all time for me. And this one, in a different way, in a different kind of cabinet, is going to be instantly locked in for all time. It really is fantastic. I cannot recommend it highly enough. Something else I can't recommend highly enough is if you're looking for a musical earworm, I would recommend the absurdly long album title, I Had the Blues, But I Shook Them Loose, by Bombay Bicycle Club.
That's the title.
I don't... The music's great. I would really recommend the song Magnet. I've listened to it a zillion times. It is very, very fun. Thank you very much to my good friend Kyler Martin for recommending it and playing it on our drive home from San Diego a lot yesterday. It was a lot of fun. You got any musical earworms, or is it time to get ourselves out of our listeners' ears and let them go watch one of our recommendations, perhaps?
Smooth. But it is time to go. So
thank you.
That is our episode, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. And if you enjoyed it, please feel free to
like,
comment,
share,
and subscribe.
But don't forget, new episodes of Super Pros Bros come out the first and third Saturday of every month.
Bye.